This is Operensis, and I have just finished, just right now, finished watching Coming to America, the sequel to Coming to America from 1989 or 1988, I believe it is. A very long-awaited sequel, and I actually had no idea this would be. I thought they would never make a Coming to America sequel, and I was very sad about that because I love the first movie. If you know anything about me, you know it's up there on my list of top 10 favorite movies of all time. I actually talked about it a lot in a YouTube video on this channel, but that list isn't entirely reliable now because one of the movies on there has actually completely been removed from that particular list because I came to a realization about it that I had not before, and it had to. One of the movies had to be removed because of something I realized. But most of the stuff on there still very much holds up, and definitely Coming to America. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. It's so amazing. I love it so much, and I loved it. And when it ended, and I watched it when I was 10 in 2000, summer of 2016, and I watched it on a vacation in Bulgaria. And after the film ended, it was one of the best, most joyous experiences of my life. And I was like, oh no, please don't end. No credits, please, no credits. And then the credits rolled. And I thought I'd never revisit this wonderful land of Zamunda. Once more see the wonderful actors playing their respectable characters, but I did. And actually, I only found out about the fact that this sequel would be happening quite like in October or November when Lucius Prime told me. If he hadn't told me, and if I hadn't seen the trailers and so on, I probably would have never even known about it coming out, but luckily I did. And most of the time I watch films on well, let's just say for YouTube purposes so that I don't get myself into any trouble, from anonymous sources I watch films. But this time I searched through my anonymous sources and I found nothing. So I took an extra 10 minutes out of my life to create an Amazon Prime account. And you know, I'll only do this if I'm super desperate, if I really want to. So just me doing that, especially if you know me, if you're one of my school friends or so on, you know that this means I have incredible dedication to the movie, and I do. I was very excited for this. So let's, okay, first of all, spoilers. Go away now. Spoilers. Okay. Okay, where do we even start? There was so much in this film. It's so difficult to address. Oh my goodness, I have to think. If I go in order, my mind is gonna blow up. So let's just say random things in random order. Okay, first of all, the aspect ratio of the film. The aspect ratio in this one obviously is, not the full screen, but the chopped up screen. I'm not exactly sure what it's called, but that's my favorite aspect ratio in any film. I prefer it over the full screen one. In fact, obviously there's some bias involved because that's the way Star Wars is, and Star Wars I absolutely love. And if you look at my new film, The Incredible Inspector, highly recommend you check it out, by the way. But you won't be able to unless you request a link from me. So if you want to request a link, please do. But you look at my new film, it's that particular aspect ratio because I love it. But the first Coming to America, the first one was full screen. So really, even though I prefer it when the film is like this, I feel like when you have the first part be in this, I don't think you should do a sequel in a different format. I think you should do the sequel in the exact same format because otherwise, and that's the first thing I noticed. I noticed that they changed the aspect ratio, and I was like, oh my goodness, why did they do that? Because I definitely remember that the first one was full screen, and that was part of the movie's character. That was an essential part of the film, really, of the way the audience perceives it. So when I saw that they made such a drastic change to the film's visual style, I was actually quite confused, but after I grew a little more used to it and the fact that it would be different from the first film, it stopped bothering me that much. Now, I do want to say this. The film is incredible, and it's I like it more than the first film. And I never thought I'd say this. One of my biggest fears going into this is that it wouldn't live up to the first film. And not only did it live up to the first film, it became superior to the first film. It improved every single element of the first film for me personally. And I'm so glad I have the ability to say this, because I was very frightened I wouldn't be able to. But I am, and I'm very happy about it. Now, I would like to tell you this. First of all, I love that we got all of the characters back. Okay, let's talk about the characters. Okay, so first of all, we got Lisa back. And I was wondering how much of Lisa we'd see, and I was very glad that we saw a very good amount of her, because she was a wonderful part of the first film, the central part of the plot. So if they dropped her, and I thought they'd background her, I thought, you know what? They really wouldn't be building on anything from the first film. They'd kind of be dropping it in favor of new stuff, much like my problem with the sequel trilogy. But they didn't do that. No. They carried on her arc and Akeem's arc. Akeem, even though we have kind of a passing of the torch to his son, Akeem is very much the central figure of the film. You look at Akeem, he very much, the entire journey is still very much focused on him. We get a lot of insight into his mind. This was perfect because you have Cleo McDowell. They built perfectly upon him. He, obviously in the first one, he was Akeem's boss, and also, of course, the father of Lisa. But he obviously had a character, and he was giving advice to Akeem. Here we have him full-on giving advice to Akeem once more. And we have further development with McDowell. We see what became of McDowell. We even get some more backstory on it. And a very interesting question about how the McDonald's, the copyright thing, that's brilliant. I love it. Secondly, look at Akeem. And I don't think they did anything bad to Akeem, because obviously, in the first part, Akeem was against all of the traditions. And in this one, he's kind of lost his way a little bit. But unlike someone like Luke or Han, where they completely changed everything and went fully back, backpedaled, he's still, I don't think he is doing so intentionally. It's very clear to me that he didn't understand that he really lost his way in many aspects. And it's not until he was told so, and really this was shown to him right in the face, when he realized, oh no, yes, I did, kind of fall back into that line of the kings who promise things but never do them. And it's just wonderful, because it's natural that when he has such great power, such great responsibility, he doesn't he kind of goes back a little bit, but I'm not saying he goes back fully to being like Jaffa Joe for a level where it's strict by the rules, everything by the rules. He isn't quite by the rules, but he kind of embraced the rules a bit, because that's the way kings are. So I think that's natural. I don't think that's a disgrace to the character. Now, Sammy, was that his name, or was it Seppi? Oh my goodness, why did I forget his name? Arsenio Hall's main character. I think he's the closest to how he was in the first film, and I think he was done wonderfully here. There are a few references, I believe, especially when he talks about the baboon during the fighting, that joke. You know what I'm talking about. I think that was from the first film, and just the way he expresses himself, everything very, very similar to the first film. I think very nice. Now, I also really loved, once again, as I mentioned before, Cleo McDowell once back. And now let's talk about Jaffa Joffer, because we've got a little bit of negativity present here. Jaffa Joffer, I think, was handled well, but I was very sad to see him go, because he was my favorite character in the first coming. Not my number one, maybe. Maybe I exaggerated that when I thought that, but he's definitely very up there. And you know that he has one of my favorite scenes of all time. I talk about it in the video once again, in that video I made in September. In all movie history, and gives me chills to this day. So obviously, having him leave, and obviously I love James Earl Jones, was very upsetting. But I do think he was great for the most part, until the thing happened, until he requested his funeral while he was alive. And actually, I know that Lucas Prime doesn't found this disturbing based on his review on the things he said to me. I didn't find it as much disturbing. What I did not like is how he died. It wasn't really, I don't think it was comedic, but there was this element of irony, element of comedy present in him saying that, I'll die right now or something like that. And then he dies. Really, it was a bit of a disgrace in my opinion. I found it a bit pathetic the way that was executed, but he was mostly handled well, and I did very much appreciate seeing the flashbacks, all of the flashbacks. One thing I'm telling you definitely, I really, really wanted to see Samuel Jackson back in some way, shape, or form. Like, maybe I thought, when they go back to America, maybe he'll once again attack the shop, or some other place now. Once again, the same burglar played by Samuel Jackson. Unfortunately, Samuel did not return, only for the flashbacks, but that was obviously used from the first movie. So that was very disappointing, to be honest. But I am very happy that we did get the Barbers back, because the Barbers, their banter, their talking, it's hilarious. And I loved their scenes in this film. And I especially loved getting the priest back, because the priest is actually maybe my favorite character, actually, now that I think about it. So seeing him back, and he wasn't just pushed there back in. They weren't pushed there back in. Fan service. No. It was so organic, because he is now he was relevant to the plot of the first movie, to Akeem's story. Now he's relevant to the story of his son. And it's like poetry, it rhymes, to quote George Lucas, really. It's amazing. And I really enjoyed seeing, another thing, I really enjoyed seeing all of the characters at the end have this great big celebration. That's really very much like, like you take Return of the Jedi, with that entire ending with the Cloud City, Endor, Coruscant, Naboo, and Tatooine, all of the planets celebrating. Here we have all of the characters celebrating. I love that ending. I love such fun endings. Oh, and also the person I loved seeing back I'm so sorry, I forgot his name. Is it Oha? Oh, is that what his name is? I'm so sorry. It starts with O, I think. But the guy who sings, with the microphone, who serves the king, obviously, of Zamunda. I loved seeing him back, and he still has the wonderful notes in his throat. I was really happy with the way he was treated. He was wonderful once again. And out of the new characters, whenever me and Lucas Prime were actually discussing this film, he always was very interested in Wesley Snipes. Now, I know nothing about Wesley Snipes, and based on the trailer, he didn't impress me too much, and I thought his character would be one of the worst parts, honestly. He didn't impress me in the trailers, if I am to be honest. But then once again, the incredible surprise came. And he was one of the best parts. In fact, when the movie started off, I thought he might be the best part of all. It's just, I love his acting, because I love all of these non-standard actors who don't just, say lines in a normal way, because you have so many bland, boring, generic actors. And as sad as it is for me to say this, I do think people like Mark Ruffalo and people like that can sometimes act very generic, in my personal opinion, which is why I don't find them that interesting. So to see this guy, do all of these cool movements, express his body, use body language, very important in acting. And I said this many times, just all of this, it really brought a smile to my face, because I was like, he's such a great addition to this entire franchise. He's so wonderful. And his role was very good for the story. Very good. And I really was afraid that they'd make it into a pure action movie. I was frightened that they'd make it like a Wakanda. They'd make him a fun version of Killmonger or something, Wesley Snipes' character, and they make him a full-on antagonist. But no, you had actual communication between both parties. There was talking, there was chatting. It wasn't a full-on war, and I was very happy about that. And actually, Grace Randolph said in her non-spoiler review yesterday that this movie doesn't feel like as good as Coming to America when it comes to the emotional stuff like that. And I thought it might be that way at first, because there was so much humor, much more than in the first one initially, and I liked it more, but I thought, maybe this is good. No, it didn't end up that way. No, because you have that conflict. I really felt that story. It felt so natural. It felt like real love. Much like the first Coming to America, it felt like real love. When Lisa runs through that metro, being pursued by Akeem, and Lisa is crying, and there's the rain, and all of that, it really hurts your heart. And then when I saw that emotional story of Akeem's son, I'm so sorry I forgot the name right now, falling in love with this once again ordinary woman, and I didn't even, I should have recognized at first that they were going to have a romance. I didn't. That's my fault. But when I looked how natural it was, I love natural romances, that don't feel forced, and the way that all emerged, their feelings for each other, and how he wanted to change the tradition. Then he sees Akeem talks with General oh my goodness, I was going to say, no, I'm so sorry, General Izzy. Okay, I was going to say something else that's better. A little rearrangement of the letters. Sorry for that. But General Izzy talking, he's a pawn in your game, you're wonderful, and just seeing his heartbreak, and then seeing him leave and go back to America. Very good way to bring back America into the story, because I was very worried we wouldn't see it again. I was like, well, that's a little too little America, but I felt America was enough in the end. But just seeing all of that emotion, and at one point, at one scene, I actually started crying. Much like the first movie had me tear up when Lisa learned of Akeem's true identity and that he's been lying to her. And I had tears in my eyes, and I had tears in my eyes now too, and I'm not lying. And I even recorded myself when I was tearing up in that moment. So here's real footage of me crying at a certain scene. That was how emotional this movie was.
Stay here in Queens and marry this fine Zamundan woman who shall not stand in your path. I have been ruled by fear for far too long.
So no, I do disagree with Grace Randall from Beyond the Trailer. I think this movie is super emotional. I think it's a great sequel. I think it's far superior to the first one. Oh, and also, the comedy is once more amazing. There are many jokes that landed more. Oh, and the character is amazing. It's so light-hearted, and yet it's so emotional. And it has the drama, it has the conflict, but it has the jokes, and it has that fun. It has that good character interaction. The characters love each other, even when there's competition, especially between Lisa and Mary. I love that. They separate their differences, and there's nothing that makes me more happy in movies than characters not ending up to killing each other, but actually settling their differences by coming to understanding in a natural and not a forced way, because that really represents the real world so well, because you have all of these, whether it be political opponents, whether it be any kind of other kind of opponents, you have all of these groups fighting, and I love it when people come together and understand each other's points, especially in like debates and discussions, and just seeing the way they resolve that. Lisa and Mary, obviously the alcohol helped a bit, but really it was very heartwarming, especially for their story having so much rivalry. Oh, and speaking of which, there was another rivalry, which was between Mary's and Akeem's son, and Akeem and Lisa's daughter, and obviously there was a huge problem there. And I thought it was going to be super feminist at first, but it wasn't. And the way that she really does understand Akeem's son's point of view, it's so wonderful. It's I loved it. Also, what kind of difference? There was yeah. I loved how towards the end, the villain, there was a physical confrontation, and it was with the bamboo sticks, so that was a callback to the first film as well, which I really loved. But in the end, they went back to negotiating, peaceful talking, peaceful chatting, and I was very happy about that. It's, once again, it's very rare nowadays that villains don't get defeated with a few punches in the throat and punches in the face, or a snap wiping them from existence. So to see this, it's really a true honor. It's a true pleasure. So yes, that really put a smile on my face. And also, I loved how it connected to the first movie also in the way that the main villain was the brother of the girl who Akeem didn't marry and left in a state of jumping and barking for the rest of her life. I really loved that, actually. because actually I actually thought, okay, so what about her now when the first film ended? And that's the way, and we see it now. We see it, and it's brilliant. It's genius, I tell you, genius. Now, obviously, I want to talk about the barbershop again because actually there's a very good thing here, which I think this is the first movie I see do this, and that's actually it's amazing because the barbershop actually has political commentary, but it has characters both express views of both parties, and I think that's so brilliant. I think that's so brilliant because that way no audience member will feel alienated or so on. And I feel if there's a talking from both sides of any kind of spectrum, not just political, any kind of spectrum where people tend to disagree, and if both sides are shown in a film and both are there, and the barbershop was a perfect example for it. It's appealing to all kinds of audiences, and I applaud whoever directed or wrote the film. I didn't research honestly yet. I will for doing that because that's such a good way to always, please any kind of audience member. And I think that's something more directors should do when they want to state something. For example, yeah. And what else? What else was I going to say? There was something I was going to. Oh my goodness! What was I going? Oh my goodness! Okay. Was I going to say anything else? That is the question. Was I going to say anything else? Was I going to say anything else? Let me try to remember. The costumes, amazing. But that's to be expected, especially after the first film, of course. What else is there to say? Let me think a little bit here. What else is there to say, really? Is there really anything else to say? It's a brilliant movie, in my humble opinion. That's what there is. No. That's it. Thank you for watching. If you liked what you saw here, and you want to see more, click the subscribe button, because that's not difficult, just one little press, and if you won't, you know what'll happen? Much like Izzy, I will launch a full-scale attack on you. No, I'm joking. YouTube, this isn't anything harmful, don't take this seriously, this was a joke, but I would appreciate a subscription nonetheless. You obviously don't have to, but if you do want to, I would really like that. So thank you, see you all tomorrow. Why tomorrow? Because I'm uploading something very fun tomorrow. Because I'm uploading a podcast with a certain person, which is, of course, Starkiller 5555. That's who I'm uploading a podcast with tomorrow. So see you.